Hi, welcome to In a Pickle Knitting. My name is Donna. This is a podcast about knitting and sometimes a little bit of sewing. Today is Thursday, May 17th. This is episode 19, in which pirates learn to knit, and I'm coming to you from Manassas, Virginia in the U.S. So today I have one finished object to share, I think 3 works in progress, and a little other news, as well as our fiber-related children's literature book, as we always do. So before I get started, I will just say, so that I don't forget to say it later, the shawl behind me is the Impressionist Mystery Knit-Along Shawl by Helen Stewart and Curious Handmade. Well, Helen Stewart is the designer of Curious Handmade, and I shared that in the last podcast, but if you want more information, be sure to go over to Ravelry and check out my project page where you can learn whatever I did that was a little bit different. And also share what I'm wearing today, which I don't usually do because I don't wear a lot of knitted items, but this is a tank top that I did knit a few years ago, and I got the pattern from this magazine, Creative Knitting, and it is the summer 2014 issue. And it is called Breakwater, and I will flip the parts of the pattern back. So it looks like this. I did make one modification, and that was the shoulder seams. This would have gone more straight across, and so I wanted it to come down a little bit, so I just did a few extra rows of garter stitch here. As you have the garter stitch here, I just added more and then seamed it together however the pattern was, and I don't recall. I did use the recommended yarn, which was Blue Sky Alpacas Multi-Cotton. It's a worsted weight yarn. It's 100% cotton, and there were 100 yards in 67 grams. And I needed, I think, about 6 or 7. It was a size 8 needle that I used. So there it is. It was called Breakwater, and that was designed by Jody Lawanda. So that's what I'm wearing. So let's move on to my one finished object, and it is the final sock of the 5 socks that I started for my little sock experiment. And here they are. Both are. And this is called Bunny Fufu, and the yarn is by the Cozy Knitter on the Bliss base, and I used a size 1 needle. This is the pair that I started on the 9-inch circulars, and I didn't like my gauge, which I determined that was from the way that I knit. I knit continental, but I hold my yarn a ways away from the project, and the 9-inch just doesn't work to give me a good gauge unless I really I can get in really close, but that's not natural for me. So I tried the Addy Flexi Flips, and I did go down a needle size. So I knit about, say here. So I knit about this far and ripped it back up here. And then I knit again that far and discovered that my gauge with the zeros, see, I was thinking for some reason my gauge might be loose, so I went with zeros. And it was so tight I couldn't get the sock on. So rip back again, and the third time was the charm. I did just go to regular magic loop. I did not do the 2 at a time magic loop, which is my usual way. My usual way is 2 at a time magic loop top down. So I still did top down, and I did magic loop, but just 1 at a time. And what I did different, because I have been working with some different heels and toes, I did put a different heel. So it's just a stockinette heel. There you can see a stockinette heel, no difference there, but the heel part, the heel turn, this is called a heart heel. And I think because if you turn it upside down, it looks like the bottom part of a heart, okay? And I got that heel from this book, The Sock Knitter's Workshop, and it, let me see, on page 48, it is called Turning a Heart-Shaped Heel. So I got that heel from this book and just inserted it into the sock and continued to as I usually do with this type heel, is to knit all of this purple color without decreasing the gusset at all, just to give me more space across here, and then I started the gusset decreases. I also did a different toe, and I had seen this pattern. I watch the Bakery Bears every other Saturday morning. It's my routine. And Kay Jones had designed a pattern called Drippity Drop Socks, and she put what she calls an umbrella toe on that sock. Now, I knew about it, and I thought of perhaps doing that sock sometime, but not just paying attention to the toe. And one of our viewers said, well, if you're going to try different toes, why don't you try that pattern? So I did, and I put this toe. It's called an umbrella toe, and you decrease down, you know, kind of looks like a little hat in a way. And it made a very nice toe. It fits very nicely, and I found it easy. And so I may use that again. And now that I've bought the pattern, I definitely will knit the Drippity Drop Socks. So this is my last pair. I do now have 5 pairs of socks knit from some of my self-striping yarn, and these are all Cozy Knitter. That was one of my goals this year, to use up a lot of my self-striping yarn. So 5, well, more, because I did a couple before these, but 5 of the Cozy Knitter skeins that I have are knit. So that feels like an accomplishment if you just ignore the self-striping yarn that came in, which is not 5. So it's at least it's going down and not all up. But I just love self-striping yarn. So that is my only finished project for this time. Now, I do have some works in progress, and we're going to look at some more self-striping yarn. Now, this yarn I bought over a year ago, and I'd always wanted to knit it. I had seen this yarn seller on Etsy. I think that's where I'm pretty sure, I think it was recommended to me because I had been searching for self-striping yarn on Etsy, so it came up as maybe it was at the bottom or something. And she has gorgeous colorways, and what I absolutely love about her Etsy shop is that perhaps she has a sock knitting, circular sock knitting machine, because she knits the sock up, and it has a short row heel and a short row toe. So if you knit your socks, at least with a lot of people do the short row heel, you might see exactly what your socks look like. And it's so nice because when you see it in the skein, you can tell the colors, but you can't tell what it's going to look like. So you could tell what the sock was going to look like. And I ordered it and was very pleased. This comes from Sweden, and I can't even begin to say the name, but I will hold the ball band up here for you, and I will link it. I'm putting all my links right below. If you just click on that little little arrow pointing down, the little gray arrow right below the what you're viewing, there'll be a link to this. This color is called Glow Away. She makes all kinds of shades, but some really bright ones. So here is the skein, and the color that you're seeing, or at least what I can see, looks exactly like this. If you have a neon green highlighter, that's the color of the green, and then this is a dark purple. And here is how far I've gotten. So a little bit of a start. My plan right now is to either start my heel, because I'm going to do an afterthought heel on these socks, is to either start it in the middle of this green band or do the purple and do it in the middle of the purple. If I do it in the middle of the green, I'll start with purple on the heel. If I do it in the purple, which I'm leaning towards, I'll start with the green. Now, definitely neon green. I love these. I love the yarn. It's great to work with. I am using a size 0 because it is, I just finished all the socks on Cozy Knitter, and her fingering weight is fairly plump. This is a little bit less plump, so I decided to go down to a 0 and cast on 72 stitches. I did about 1.5 inches of a 2x2 rib, and then it's just a stockinette. I'm going to do afterthought heel, and I haven't decided what toe. I may do that umbrella toe again. So I'll just decide that when I get down to the bottom of the sock. And what I'm going to do is do about 2 more rows, the purple and another section of green. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my afterthought heel in so that I can try it on and be sure to get it the right length. And if you can notice, what's very interesting is all the shading here in the green and purple sections. It's like it's dark to light to dark in both sections. So I'm just, I love them. So let me show you if I can get this back up here. I had it all ready, but of course, you know, the iPad goes to sleep. This is a Ravelry page that shows just a few. There, good, you can see it. And this skein right here, which is called Lava Stream, I think looks very much like Halloween. And when I originally ordered, I only ordered one because, you know, I've never used the yarn before. And now that I've used it, I went back and ordered that one because I would like to do that for Halloween. And I'm also going to show you a little tiny bit of her Etsy page so you can see there's just a few of her colors. She has a lot of colorways, and they all have interesting stripe patterns. So give that a try if you like the looks of some of those self-striping yarns, and I'm very pleased. My next work in progress is one that I just started, and this is also thanks to a viewer. I've been wanting to knit some slippers for a while, and I have a slipper book. I've downloaded a few slipper patterns, but then I just never seem to find the yarn that will just go right with it. So this one was recommended to me, as I said, by a viewer, and it's by Nell Knits, and they're called Saki slippers. And there's what the slipper looks like. And they did it with, I think one of the recommended ones was Cascade 220. And I have a lot of Cascade 220, and I thought, okay, finally, I've got a match here. So I want to make my dad a pair of slippers for Father's Day. And this is, I believe, a women's pattern, but I just picked the large. And there's a place in the slipper where she says, you know, measure it here. So if you need to adjust, you can just do it right there. So I could have made it a little bit longer, but I had my husband try it on, and they have almost the same size foot, and it fit him with a little bit of space. So I thought, okay, I'm going with that one. And here is my first slipper. So I'm using this blue Cascade 220. This is not the superwash. So I'll have to leave, well, I don't even think I'll have to leave specific instructions, because for the sole, I have ordered, and they are on their way, some leather patches to sew on. So one goes here and one goes down here. My dad's in his 80s. He just got over back surgery. He has stairs that he goes up and down every day. And so I want to be sure that he doesn't slip in them. So I decided I would put the leather patches on there as a precaution and give him a little warning. But here, let me open it up this way so you can see the top. It is done all in one. You have to weave in your cast on edge, and you have to weave in when you bind off, and that's it. And I did that. I started them one evening and finished them the next evening. So I really think they're nice. I like the way this part kind of comes in, so you feel like that may, you know, hold it on the foot better. And you had your option of doing this tab, you know, this way or another way, but I decided just to put a little tab so you can pull up the back. So that's my first slipper, and I have just started to cast on. Now, I will say about the pattern, the way this slipper has been created, the design, I think is genius. And at first I sort of thought, oh, what's it doing? But just trusting in the pattern, I finally figured out, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. And she just has it set up on the needles a certain way to make it make more sense as you're knitting and be able to, you know, keep your rhythm going. However, I'm doing the large, and I'm fairly certain there's an error in the number of stitches that you bind off when you're at this part. The small has a certain number, the medium has and 2 more than that, and then the large goes back to the number for the small. And then your stitch count's not right. So I pulled it out, and since it went +2. I went +2, did that, and then my stitch count was what she said it should be. So I'm pretty sure that's a mistake. And there was a place on the Ravelry pattern page to send a message about errata, and I did send off a message. So should you do the large, you might want, you know, just at that spot, see if maybe you agree with me or not, but just as a place that maybe you think, do I want to do what it says or go up to 17 instead? And I also found the directions for the cast on a little bit confusing. She has 2 links. One is to a blog, and that I found like not giving me enough information. I needed to know more. And the second one is to Knitty for called a magic cast on. And when I got and watched that, I thought, okay, this is just as you might start a toe-up sock. And I use a Turkish cast on for that. So I just did the Turkish cast on, and it worked great. So I think you can substitute however maybe you do toe-up socks, if you do toe-up socks at all. But it maybe other people would have an easier time following it. But I found the pattern maybe wasn't tech edited, because some of the instructions just don't seem to follow. It's easy to follow. It's not that it was difficult, but you know, I'm used to when there's a marker that it'll say SM, slip the marker, and you know, this pattern doesn't say it. Well, it's obvious, but I'm a second guesser. It's like, well, am I supposed to do that before I slip the marker or after I slip the marker? So when you tell me, then I'm really sure. That's the kind of knitter I am. I stop and do stitch count all the time, and there were stitch counts throughout the pattern. And I don't want to sound like I love the pattern, and I'm going to knit a whole lot more of these. But my first time through, there were just a few places that, for me, made me think, okay, what exactly am I doing here? So once you've done it, then, you know, of course, it's easy. So I recommend them. Saki slippers, and it's on Ravelry. It's a paid-for pattern. So that's my second work in progress. Now for my third work in progress, and I don't know now if it's going to continue to be a work in progress. I talked about 2 episodes ago about I was going to knit this vest called the Yvonne vest out of a magazine, and I ordered the yarn for it, and as of the last episode I had started my swatch. Well, I really could not get gauge, and I washed the swatch and didn't really care for the way that the lace looked afterwards, and I wasn't engaged, so I was going to have to do another one. And I thought, you know, maybe I'll just find something else that I can knit using this yarn that will take the gauge that I am getting. So I did find a pattern that I had marked that I wanted to knit sometime, and this is by Isabel Kramer. It's called the Edie sweater. And of course this would suit me because I like the V-neck, the short sleeves, and it is a linen cotton blend yarn. This is not, the yarn they used here was Sparrow, I think, by Quince & Co. Let me double check. Yeah, Sparrow by Quince & Co., which is 100% linen. So I'm not using that yarn, but I was getting the gauge that she suggested here. So with one of the needles, I think the 4. And so I'm knitting on that, and I will show it to you. I'm going to show you first, though. I'm keeping it in this gorgeous bag. This is by Ellie at Craft House Magic, and this has the nicest fabric down here. She said it was a wool. It's a gorgeous color with here, and with the top part. If you can see her free motion quilting, look at that around the smoke there on the house and around all the house detail, around some of the rabbits. Right here, I'm in awe, because I've tried free motion quilting, and it's definitely not something I've had any great experience with, but it's hard, and I think it takes a whole lot of practice to get to the point that you can do that. But it has this nice handle, and she had a little stitch progress keeper on the zipper, but I took it off to use. And some other little details inside her pocket. She's sewn on this little felt pouch to keep needles, and she put a little stitch marker holder there and it's a great size bag. This has 6 skeins of yarn and what I've started on it. Well, there's 6 50-gram skeins. So this Edie cardigan or sweater, V-neck, short sleeve sweater. Here is where I am. Hard to see, I know, because you know it's stockinette, so it rolls up here, so it's kind of hard to see. Got one of the fronts sleeve. It's a top-down raglan. The back, the other sleeve, and the other front. So lots of increasing going on right here. But I think what I have to come down to is I don't like the yarn. It's the linen, cotton. I don't really know. It's pretty. It's not that it's rough or feel. I like knitting with wool, and when I was working on this, and that's why I stopped and did the slipper, because I just was getting tired of that yarn, and I started knitting with this, and see, I just like knitting with wool. It's just so the stretch is, it's a familiar feel, and it's good. So you know, I don't know. When you block it, it does come together a little bit more, but also, I don't know if you can see, it has a lot of these really thick spots in it, and so those are kind of pesky. I don't know. I think I'd like to knit this out of something else. I like the pattern, but I'm not sure it's gonna be around, and I feel really bad that I've given up once and now I may give up twice. Maybe I'll just set it aside and work on it now and then, but I'm not very good with those kinds of long-term progress. But as long as I'm talking about Ellie's bag that I ordered, I've learned from watching podcasts that things that travel don't like to be alone. I didn't know that. So I did order 2 things, and this beautiful sock set. It's called Where the Wild Roses Grow, and I've seen it knit up. This is a merino nylon 75-25 and has a coordinating mini, and it just makes a beautiful speckled sock, and pink is my favorite color, so I just had to order that too, which I know sounds silly, but everybody else says that's the way it works, so I'm going along with everybody else and trying not to let my things ship all by themselves. My husband didn't think much of that idea at all. So those are my 3 works in progress right now. So let's move on now and do our fiber-related children's literature book. While getting that children's literature book, I looked down at my table and I see that I forgot I did have another finished object. It was actually 3. They were a set of dishcloths. I'd finished the 2 of them earlier, quite a while ago, in fact. And then with Mother's Day coming up here in the U.S., I decided to finish the 3rd one. My mother loves knit or crocheted dishcloths, and so I finished up the 3rd one and sent those off to her for Mother's Day, and she really appreciated them. She said she had reached the point she knew she had to throw some away and was going to ask, did I still knit them? So I'm glad that I sent those. I'll put a picture here, or maybe I've already put a picture here, and I'll show you. This is the book that the pattern came from, Sugar and Cream by Lily, and there's several patterns in here. And the one that I did is, I think they have a nice picture right here. It's called Rosemary, and it has garter stitch and some stockinette. And I think I may have already mentioned this before, but it was through doing dish towels that I learned to knit, and that's all I knit for the first, I knit 75 or more of them, and which each kind that I did, I tried to learn something new. And in that particular pattern called Rosemary, there are make one rights and lefts. There are two, so it has 2 increases and 2 decreases. You learn to slip a stitch, and so that was a good pattern for me to add to my knowledge of different kinds of stitches. So that was another finished object and that I had. So our book today, this is called Ned the Knitting Pirate, written by Diana Murray, illustrated by Leslie I'm not sure how to say that, Lammle. and it has really cute illustrations. Now, this is a great story for children, young children of all, you know, any young child. But I think that if you were trying to do a book about knitting, this might interest some of the boys as well. It's told in verse, and it's told in pirate lingo, and it's one of the little pirates in the story is a knitter. The rest of the pirates, they frequently repeat, they have a repetitive part in the book, which is songs that they sing. So, we're pirates, out sailing the sea, so scruffy and scrappy and happy are we. Those change into other kinds of rhymes. We're tougher than gristle and barnacle grit. We heave and we hoe and we swab and we knit. So the whole crew turns, and the little guy here is Ned, and he says, "Arr," said Ned, "I likes to knit. Ye might too if ye try it." So the story goes on, and they repeat those. They have different words, but you know, that kind of little rhyme as they sing, and it always comes down to him knitting. And then one night, a sea monster shows up, and Ned saves the day with some of his knitting. So if you have a young one you want to have a fiber-related book, Ned the Knitting Pirate might be the choice for you. Now it's time for our giveaways, and this particular week we wouldn't have any giveaways, but our sock-along winner never has gotten in touch with me since the last podcast. So I have gone back and used the same parameters, which were numbers 454 through 533, and this time the random number generator picked 472, which is Peg MCC. So Peg, if you will get in touch with me through a Ravelry private message, we'll send this to Guys Yarn Company yarn in the Kiss Tangerine Company out to you. This is a BFL and Donegal Nep blend, and Peg did this pair of socks, which I know it's a little bit blown out, but aren't they beautiful? She used the Susan B. Anthony. Oh, this has been a day. Susan B. Anderson's pattern, the Smooth Operator sock pattern with an afterthought heel. So Peg MCC, I would like to hear from you, and I'll get this yarn out to you right then. Now, coming up, I had last podcast asked you for some suggestions on make-alongs that we might do, and I received several suggestions. I'm going to start with a couple of them. We'll start 2 make-alongs. The first one is going to be a shawl along, and you can on the shawl along, I'd like this to be new cast-ons, not any whips, and I think we'll have it run for 2 months. So I will put the start and ending dates in a thread over in Ravelry. It'll be called Shawl Along, and I think what I'm going to do, since I don't have a shawl on the needles right now, is wait, and May 21st, Curious Handmade is starting the Shawl Society III, so I will wait and have a look at that first shawl, and that may be the shawl that I do. If not, I have several other patterns in mind that I have purchased yarn for or patterns for and want to make. So if you do the same, you can join us over there. Just be a member of the Ravelry group and join in the chatter thread, and then I'll start a finished object thread as well. The price for that is going to be a bee bag, and I have the fabric, but I don't have it sitting right in front of me. I forgot to bring it over, and I have not made the bag yet, but it will be a shawl-sized project bag. And what gave me the idea to make this was I was looking at Knitty by Nature. She is a shop, has an online shop, and this is one of her little containers that she'll send your progress keepers and stitch markers in. But I had seen this set, which is a gold tone and has the gold bee and these hexagonal shaped stitch markers, and I love these thin metal ones. They slide so easily on your needles, and when I saw this I thought, oh, I will make a bee bag and I'll make it a shawl size, and this will be part of that giveaway for the make along. But when I ordered, and I ordered some others as well, that's why this little container has more in it. But Melissa from Knitty by Nature sent me 2 sets as giveaways. So here they are. There's this beautiful butterfly, and then this one, and little round stitch markers. You might have noticed I was using a set that I ordered on my pullover there, and they are textured, and I really like those. They slip very easily, and then this beautiful butterfly is a progress keeper. And then this set has the light bulb shaped stitch markers, which I love because you can open them if you want to stick it in something, or you can just use it to slip along. And then look at this adorable little sock. So we have these two sets as another giveaway, and what I'm going to do is open another Ravelry thread that will just say Knitty by Nature giveaway, and I will put a prompt there, and if you will, actually I think I know what the prompt will be. Please visit her shop online and make a mention of something from her shop that you would like to have, and that will be how we pick a winner for each of those. So I'll draw 2 different names and send those out to you. And thank you so much for Melissa for sending me these 2 lovely giveaways and my beautiful stitch markers. So let's see, that gives us our make-alongs and our sock-along giveaway that I had to redraw for. Before I move on to the last couple of things, at the end, I may have something related to butterflies because the last time I talked about the swallowtails and a couple people made comments, and I just wanted to show something that'll be easier to show, and so but I'm saving that for the end because I know this is a knitting podcast, not a butterfly podcast. But on the knitting podcast part, then we have Maryland Sheep and Wool. I'll just do a little brief share a couple of things, and also what I'm grateful for. So today, what I'm grateful for is the rain. We've had unusually warm weather here in Virginia. It's kind of, not today, it's not, it has been a couple of days, but for the last week or two, we were getting up in the 90s, which is very summer-like and not spring-like. And so our lawn was getting pretty dry, and our irrigation system has been turned off for the winter. They winterize it, and they need to come back out and summarize it, I guess. But because we cannot get they take this piece out of it, and we've tried before to put it back on ourselves when we couldn't get them out here very quickly, and we can't do it. We've tried, we cannot do it. So they need to come out, and they missed their appointment. So my lawn was getting really dry, and now we've had days of rain. So I'm very grateful for the rain to keep all of our grass and our trees and our bushes clean, and also wash away some of the pollen from the air. We've just, with all that really warm weather, there was pollen on everything. So it's very nice to have some rain. Now, Maryland Sheep and Wool. I did go. Sadly, I didn't see anybody from the podcast, and I wasn't invited to the podcaster meetup and didn't know where it was or when it was either. So I did not go to that. And in fact, I think by about 12:30 or 1 o'clock we left because we'd done the entire tour and gone through the main exhibition hall twice, and I was tired, so we just, and all the places to eat, the lines were really, really long, so we went ahead and headed home. But I'm not going to share the yarn that I bought because I said I wasn't going to buy any, and I let myself down there, which gave me a little buyer's remorse, but not totally, because I love everything that I did get. But I'm going to share a couple of things that I bought that were non-yarny from Maryland Sheep and Wool. And the first is this beautiful shawl pin, and this is called the Noteworthy Pin, and it was created by Crafty Flutterby Creations, and I will link her shop down below. I love to buy shawl pins, and I thought that one was particularly beautiful. And another little thing that I bought was this adorable Christmas ornament that looks like a ball of yarn with knitting needles. And this is by the Grazing Herd Sheep and Wool Company. And again, I will put a link below. I thought this was really cute. And you want to support everybody, and but I did not want to over yarn it. And I also purchased this knit and crochet coloring book, I Dream of Yarn. This is available on Amazon. So if you're someone who's into, there's so many adult coloring books out there now, but this was yarn related, and I actually thought I'd use it with my grandson when we sit down sometime to color. He's not at the point he just scribbles, but eventually when he gets better, then I used to sit down with my daughter and we would both color, so I will use this one for some companion coloring. This was from, I'm going to have to put the name down here, it's a Buffalo Wool Company maybe. I got in a little yarn trouble in their booth, but I added this as an impulse item at the checkout counter. So, but you can get it on Amazon as well. And oh, one more thing, and that was I visited the Zwiebach Creations booth, and she's an artist, and she has a gallery, I think, in Baltimore. And she takes some of her artwork and makes it into not just pictures to hang on the wall, but puzzles. And this is I should have taken it out of the box, but I really didn't want to. It is a sheep, and I talked to her, and she said that she started thinking as she was creating this, what if the sheep knit its own sweater? And so you can see that the knitting starts up here, it's very subtle, and then it knit its own sweater. So this is about a 500-piece puzzle, and we like doing puzzles, and I share them. My mom and sister and I share puzzles around once we've done them. So I thought that could be either a gift or one that we do and mail on. And I also bought from her this little postcard, which it's a real postcard, and so it's this plastic I can't take off because you actually mail it this way, although I think I might stick it in a box instead. But it's this lovely shepherdess and her sheep, and this is a puzzle as well. So those things were just kind of fun things that I purchased. I did go back to the Lion Potter and get another green mug like I did last year, but it's the same as one that I've already shared before, so I wanted a pair of them. So that was Maryland Sheep and Wool, and had a great time. Well, that brings me to the end, and if you've stuck around this long, thank you so much for watching today, and I hope that you found something of interest on the podcast and that you'll come back again. I will say that I probably will not be back for about 3 weeks. It's usually about 2 weeks between podcasts, but all next week I'm going to be working. I work 20 days a year. I am retired, but from the county that I work for in the school system, I go back and work 20 days every year, and for this they add to my retirement. So, and you can only do that for a few years, but I do have 9 days left, which is kind of bad. It's all at the end of the year, but this had been my plan from the beginning. I will be working, helping a library weed and get packed up because their library is being renovated this summer. So they need extra hands on deck for that. So all next week I will be working, and when you do anything that's not what you're used to doing, it's very tiring. So I know I'm not going to get very much done. I will lose all of my daytime knitting time, which isn't large as it is, but I'll lose it all, and then I'm not sure how much I'll get done at night. And then I may have to do my other 4 days that following week or the week after. They have a few things going on and aren't quite certain, but I'm going to be pretty busy with 9 days of work, which is out of my normal routine. So I think it'll be probably 3 weeks before I'm back. Now, if you'd like to hear something more about the butterflies, if you were interested in that, I just thought I'd stick this at the end here. Somebody mentioned, oh, how did you keep the butterflies in your garage over the winter? Were they on the parsley plant? Well, no, because they eat through that parsley plant. And what happens with at least the black swallowtails and the monarchs, which are the two that I have reared at home. Actually, it's raised because you rear children. Yes, that I've raised at home. They wander off their host plant to form their pupa and either overwinter in it or, come out 2 weeks later. So I use this. Now, this is something that I learned to do with the Monarch Teacher Network, and that is an organization that's in both Canada and the U.S. They are, as they say, Monarch Teacher Network. They go out and do workshops for teachers to bring this the Monarch phenomena into the classroom. And then I just adapted it because we had black swallowtail caterpillars on our parsley. So what they suggested doing is getting a tomato cage. So this is a tomato cage. And the ones that I found, I had to cut off with really stiff wire cutters, the top spokes. And then you buy tulle, and they suggest black specifically because you want it to be maybe a little bit darker inside, because when they do go to pupate, they usually look to be under something, so the darkness can help there. This one is one that was over the swallowtails. And then what you're doing on the bottom is you get a large plant tray that this can just sit down in, so that you can put your host foods in there and you can lift this off and add more food, do whatever. You also have an opening on the side that you close with the clothespins so that you can get in here if you need to just get in here without lifting. There are times you might not be able to lift up depending on what's going on in here. So around the bottom, you just stitch it, just cut it and stitch it so you've wrapped it around and overlapped here. And then on the top, just draw it together and use a rubber band or a hair band or something like that. And then the clothespins to close it up. Now, what you see in here are two chrysalis. This one, these are black swallowtail chrysalis. This one did not emerge. I don't know if I can get it any better for you there. And so this is still outside. I don't think it's going to come out. The rest have come out, and it's been at least a week since the last one. This one, though, came out. So maybe I can open this so you can see them a little bit better. There you go. This one is actually empty right here. And they are attached with a piece of webbing that they make like a girdle to hold themselves up. This one came loose at the bottom, and so I think maybe that's why it didn't emerge. But this was in my garage, and then when the weather started getting more spring-like, I moved it to our gazebo because it screened in. But while in the garage, we had something strange happen. There were 2 Carolina wrens in the garage overnight. We closed the door at whatever time, and it wasn't open again until, well, my husband leaves really early, and it was dark out, and I don't think they're daytime birds, so they were not flying in at 3:30 in the morning. But I left and came back, and I heard something in the garage. I actually thought it was like a mouse or something down in some leaves that had gathered in one of the corners. And so I just stood really still, and there was no movement. Went in the house, and I heard the loudest song from the Carolina wren, and went out there, and there were 2 in the garage. So this was still sitting in there. And when I went to leave a little later that morning, I just glanced over, because I had been keeping an eye on it to see if they had emerged so that you can let them go. And I couldn't see all of them. I saw these 2. And I saw one more, and they were all on the bottom, and I think those wrens were trying to get them. So I sewed them back up on the side, which probably wasn't the greatest thing, but all but one survived being sewn up, and this one I couldn't really connect. So I don't think it's going to come out. I think it has to do with the wren. But we did get several emerge and let them go. I'll show you the same thing from the Monarchs. This was just in the garage because it was left over. But these form their chrysalis way up here on the top, and they do it in a different way. They, which I think I did show last year in one of my podcasts, one of them pupating. So there is the empty chrysalis. So it's kind of like onion skin. Listen. And what you see inside there, it's green. That's what was inside. And then the day before they're going to emerge, it turns, the pigment cells all get where they're supposed to be. And you know on the Monarch, it's going to emerge the next day because it starts turning the dark color. And when you get up in the morning, you can see the Monarch coloring on there. So I will pull these down before we reuse it. You also might see right here some are. And they have thread on them. That's because I sewed them on there. It's rare, but sometimes they do fall off of what they are on, or I've had them make their chrysalis on a dried up leaf, or a leaf that's okay, and then it dries up, and you can't really hold it up with anything. So if you're really careful, there is a way to get them carefully down, tie the thread around the cream master and put them someplace where they will stay, because they have to hang. When the butterfly emerges, it has to hang and pump fluid from its abdomen into the leaves, and it has about 5 minutes to do that. So if it had been on the ground, it can't really emerge and form its wings properly. And that does happen in nature. But what happened in this case was I had this out last fall, August, September, when they were pupating in my gazebo again. I'm thinking, well, it's screened in here, and they were just on plants out there. Well, several of them pupated on the sides of plant pots or up on these just part of the gazebo. And I was still going out and checking. I had live caterpillars and watering the plants and such, and I had 3 up on just some wood just hanging down, and 2 of them were gone. I was just, where? I mean, they wouldn't have just fallen. They didn't. The cream master was still there. They were gone. And so all the rest that were not contained, I removed and hung up in here so that they would stay safe. And later I found skeletal or semi-skeletal remains of a dead tree frog. And I have a feeling Mr. Tree Frog got in there somehow. I still don't know how, but ate them, the ones that were gone. So we lost a couple that way, and that's why I have some hanging in here. And they all did fine. So that's... I just wanted to, I thought it would be easier to show how we do that, and rather than to explain it. If they make their chrysalis on a leaf, if it's a big one on a plant, I'll leave it, and when the plant eventually dies out, because if they're still there, then I have to move it. Anyway, I've got to go pick up my grandson. I've had a few catastrophes today with the filming, and where I thought I was filming, I wasn't. So I really need to go now. And hopefully I will get this edited today and put up, but if not today, then tomorrow. And until I'm back with you again in 3 or 4 weeks, I hope that you enjoy all of your crafting. Bye-bye.